Well, welcome, and thanks for joining us for this March installment of Coffee with Jim. As you know, this is a conversation with First Lady of Pepperdine, Joline Gash. So welcome, Joline. Glad to have you with us.
Thanks for asking me.
It actually wasn't my idea. I thought when it was suggested by the alumni office to have Joline, who is an alum, I said, well, it would be fun. We'll just see if she's interested. So thanks for being a good sport and chatting about your journey here to Pepperdine and at Pepperdine. So let's just kind of start at the beginning. Let our audience know, like, where'd you grow up, and tell us about your family as a kid.
Sure. So I grew up in Northern California in a little town, and I had a really large family. In our blended family, there were 7 kids. And so I was the youngest of all those kids. And, there wasn't really a big expectation for us to go to college. Neither of my parents had gone to college, and none of their relatives had gone to college. And so it was just not really expected. But I really loved science and animals, and I knew I wanted to do something. And I had heard, if you want to become a veterinarian or anything like that, you'd have to go to college. So that was kind of on my radar, thinking about someday I'd love to go to college.
Well, tell us about your pets when you were a kid. What did you have?
Okay, so we were in the country, so we had everything from horses to donkeys. But some of the pets that I kept, I had a guinea pig, turtles, fish, cats, dogs. It was at one time we had about 30 mallard ducks, which was a lot of fun. So it was just great. I loved being outside with the animals, and always loved hanging out with them and learning more about animals. So it was kind of a natural for me, I think, to want to do something in science.
So how did you talk about going to college? Tell us about your first interaction or your first knowledge of Pepperdine. How did that get on your radar screen?
Well, the first time I heard about Pepperdine was from my youth minister. I attended the Sonoma Avenue Church of Christ in Santa Rosa, and our youth minister had gone to Pepperdine. And so he decided to take some of our youth group to this thing that was called Youth Fest. This was back in the 80s. And we went over Thanksgiving break. We spent a couple days at Pepperdine. And from the moment I saw this campus and set foot on it, I just was in awe. And I just thought, there's no way my family can afford to send me to Pepperdine. I didn't even ask how much it cost, because I knew it was going to be expensive. But I just kind of had that in the back of my mind, thinking, wow, the ideal place to go to school would be Pepperdine. But it took me a little while to get there.
Well, tell us a little bit about this. Where did you meet? Where'd you meet the president of Pepperdine?
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked. So I met this guy. He was in youth group. He was in a Sunday school class, and he was hanging out with my cousin there who went to church with us. And I saw this guy named Jim, and I wasn't really sure if he was that serious, because he was really funny and cracked a lot of jokes in Bible class. But I kind of kept my eye on him, and I watched, and he grew up over time. And then he became very interesting. So
I was at ACU, and when you went to Pepperdine, I remember you telling me about your visit to Pepperdine. But you ended up at ACU rather than Pepperdine. Talk us through how you ended up there, and what you were doing at Pepperdine, what you studied. At ACU.
Yeah, so I did eventually, as you know, but maybe others don't know, I started dating you while you were at ACU. And so when I was ready to go to college, I applied to ACU and went there, enjoyed my time there. I studied biology and made some great friends, and really loved the people in Texas, and felt like it was a good place. I could have seen myself staying there really for the 4 years, but as you were graduating and leaving ACU and heading out to Pepperdine, I knew that I wanted to continue following you around the country. And so that was an easy decision for us to move back to California.
So you spent a year and a half at ACU, and just before you left, what happened on one evening after an Olive Garden dinner?
Oh, yes, the famous dinner at Olive Garden. So after that, when you proposed to me, of course, I said yes. And it was very exciting to get to plan. And my roommates came and celebrated with us. And it was a really fun time. That was a really special memory for me and for my roommates. And then, as you know, we kind of went back to our hometown, planned our wedding. I actually attended a community college in our hometown for a semester. And right after we got married, we headed down to Pepperdine for you to start law school.
Married in June of 1990. I think we have a rather embarrassing photo of some little kids.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so I had grown up a little bit. I was still quite immature relative to you. I was 23 and Joline was 20. So after her sophomore year, we got married. So then tell us about your journey to Pepperdine. How did that come about? Because you said earlier you couldn't afford Pepperdine. How did it come about that you could attend?
That's true. Even after marrying you, marrying this guy who was going to become a full-time student. So then I really, really couldn't afford Pepperdine. But Pepperdine was so generous in giving me academic scholarships and financial aid, really because of donors that gave funds for students like me, who I was academically qualified to come. I had done 2 years, so I just needed 2 more years of college. And I was given that opportunity to come to Pepperdine. And I'm forever grateful because I don't know how we could have done it except for that. And of course, I worked while I was a student at Pepperdine. I worked in Payson Library and really enjoyed my time doing that. And I just felt like this opportunity was too good to be true. So I'm forever thankful that I had an experience here at Pepperdine.
So Jolene won't say this, but Jolene was valedictorian of her high school and had straight A's her first 2 years in undergraduate, and that helped as well. But tell us about your experience at Pepperdine while you were here.
It was an amazing place for me, really, to continue to grow up. I had mentors here. One of my favorite professors in science was Steve Davis. And I remember Janet, his wife, would cook for us. He would invite the class to come into their condo on campus. Janet would cook a meal for us. We would have these really wonderful conversations. And I remember watching their daughter, Cindy, grow up. And so it just felt like family. It felt really comfortable. And then in my education classes to become a teacher, I became really close with Claudette Wilson. And she was a wonderful mentor for me, taught me so many things about life and education. There's a picture showing us, that was our student teaching cohort. So Claudette had all of us into her home to celebrate the end of our time of student teaching. And you can see we just all really loved being together, and Claudette sort of turned our class into a family as well. And so I think I really learned a lot from my professors at Pepperdine about how to be hospitable, inviting people into their homes, and also just how to be a really excellent teacher. And that is what I was striving to do. And so to have mentors like that was wonderful.
So majored in biology, and what was your plan while you were in undergrad? What was your plan, kind of career plan post? Like, what did you want to do with that biology degree?
Yeah, so I really wanted to become a high school biology teacher. I had loved science, like I said, since I was a little kid. When I was in my high school biology class, I really fell in love with just the whole idea of teaching and wanted to be just like my high school biology teacher. So as I said, I was here at Pepperdine studying biology, working on my teaching credential. When it was time for me to find my first job, I had applied a couple of different school districts, but because I'd done my last student teaching round at Malibu High School, they already knew me. They offered me a position in science. It wasn't exactly the biology classes that I had always dreamed of teaching. It was physical science, which was a great experience for me to have, but it still wasn't really like the center of the bullseye for my teaching career. But I was really thankful for that first year to be able to teach. I learned a lot. And I kind of learned too, it's okay coming right out of college. You may not get your dream job the first time around.
So you graduated in 92? Is that
Correct.
right? 92. So here's graduation. And yeah, look at that. I mean, fashion is my middle name, as you can tell. I mean, just the white jeans. That, for those of you who are young, that actually was cool back then. Not really, but anyway, who is that that's giving you your diploma and congratulating you as you walk across the stage?
Yeah, that was First Lady Barbara Bush. And I remember our graduation wasn't as much fun as maybe Pepperdine graduations are typically remembered, because we had the First Lady of the United States on our campus. For one thing, we had to do the ceremony on the track because they wanted to be able to protect the area around the First Lady. Not only that, they told us as we were getting seated, they said, there's going to be no shenanigans during this ceremony, no beach balls, no sudden movements. And they kind of, made us afraid to walk across the stage. They said, if you look like you're going to do anything on the stage, we're going to take you down. The Secret Service will take you down. And so I don't know if you can tell, I look really happy in these pictures because I really was happy, but it was a little more serious ceremony than other ones I've seen.
And that was a big hair era, I guess, for both of us.
Yes.
Mine has gone away and yours has flattened a bit. But another thing Joline won't tell you, that she was valedictorian of Pepperdine as well. And so tell them about the envelope we got in the mail a few weeks after graduation, and how we ended up getting that.
So each person, as we graduated, they took our photo with the First Lady, just like that picture you see there. So I sent that photo to the White House, and I put a note in there, and I just said, Mrs. Bush, if you're willing, I would love to get your signature on this. And so she actually signed it and mailed it back in a very large envelope. And the return address just said the White House, nothing else, just the White House. So when the mailman came to deliver it to our little apartment, it wouldn't fit in the mailbox. So he brought it to our front door, but we weren't home. So he gave it to our next door neighbor to hold on because he figured it was pretty important. So I remember getting home later that day, and the neighbor knocks on the door, and he has this envelope, and he starts to hand it to me, and he's just like, okay, this came from the White House for you. And I said, oh, okay, thanks. And I just closed the door. A few minutes later, he comes knocking again. He's like, I just need to know what's in that envelope. So I showed him the picture, and it was really sweet of the First Lady to sign that for me. And we had a good laugh with our neighbor about the whole thing.
Excellent. So from there, you graduated, you taught at Malibu High, and then we started moving. My career was after graduating from law school, started to take us places. Kind of walk us through the next chapter of moving and starting to have a family.
Yes, as we started moving, for those people who don't know how the teaching credential thing works, it's state by state. And so I had my California credential, but moving to Texas, in order for me to teach there, I would have had to get an emergency credential and then figure out how to get a more permanent one. Since we didn't know where we were going after that year in Texas, I thought it's okay if I want to take a little pause in teaching and just see what happens. Well, then we started our family, and our first daughter was born in Houston, Texas. And then we ended up moving to Virginia. And by that time, I wasn't really interested in trying to get an emergency credential in Virginia. It just didn't make sense. So I really poured myself into our family, raising the kids, spending a lot of time with our kids. And by the time we got back to California, I was pregnant with our second child. And so I think that was really good for me, just to not be worried about trying to continue my teaching career at that time, and just allow myself to really invest deeply into our children, into our children's ministry at church, and eventually to volunteer in the classrooms with our kids.
So let's a picture of us when we were a little bit closer to the current fashion, but awesome kids. I don't even remember where that was taken. Do you remember where that was taken, Joline?
Yeah, that's outside Firestone Fieldhouse, I think.
Oh yeah, that's that big tree back there.
I think.
So we ultimately moved back to Malibu, or Southern California, while I was teaching at the law school. And as you said, you were pouring into the kids and being involved in every aspect of their lives. At one point, your husband came home and proposed the next chapter that wasn't in Malibu. Talk a little bit about what that was and how you processed that.
Yeah, well, I had really supported you in all of your trips that you'd been taking to Uganda. And I felt it was important for me to kind of hold down the fort. And those times when you would travel, I was there with the kids and could continue making sure everything was running smoothly. But the idea of the whole family packing up and moving with you to Africa seemed a little far-fetched. Now, of course, I wasn't going to just have you go by yourself. We were, if we were going to go, we were going to do it as a family. But I was very hesitant. I had never been anywhere in Africa. I didn't know if I would even visit at some point, but the idea of moving there was pretty intimidating. There was a lot to figure out. There were a lot of moving parts in trying to make sure that our children's education could continue. At that point, we had 2 in middle school, and our oldest was in high school in her junior year. And so it was really difficult to see how that would all work. And so I just really started praying about that.
And how was it during that 6 months in Uganda? Tell us about your experience there.
It turned out to be the best thing that we could have done as a family. For me personally, I felt like the opportunities that the Lord gave us there were better than we could have imagined. Before we'd moved there, I'd kind of seen myself maybe working a little bit with you, doing something with prison ministry, reaching out to some of the juvenile prisoners, but that wasn't an option once we got there. But because of another family that had moved there from the States that was doing mobile medical clinics, the kids and I were able to join them. And so I was able to use a little bit of my science background. I wasn't examining patients, but I was able to help assist and do things with registration. But for our oldest daughter, that really opened up a whole possibility for her to go into medicine. And so I'm really grateful for that. I made a lot of great relationships with the doctors and nurses there in Uganda. And so it was really better than I could have hoped for. And I think that's just God's way of, saying, do you trust me? Like, I have something really cool planned for you. If you just say, yes, I'm going to show you what it is.
Well, then the next chapter opens as we get back and the kids are now attending Oaks Christian. And so walk us through how your journey toward working at Oaks Christian unfolded.
Well, I had been doing some volunteer work at Oaks Christian for a while and really enjoyed that, and was spending time weekly with other moms praying for our kids at Oaks. And that was really wonderful, meaningful things to be doing. And then it came up, just apparent that they needed some extra substitute teachers. And so I thought, well, I could start subbing. That would be kind of a nice way for me to be in the classroom just a little bit and see, get my feet wet. And so I started substitute teaching, became a daily sub. I was getting busier and busier with that. And then an opportunity came up for me to do a long-term sub position. And actually, it was one of the times while we were actually living in London. So that was our 3rd family visit to London for you to teach over there. And our youngest daughter, who was there as a 9th grade high school student, she saw on the Oaks Christian website that they were looking for this long-term sub. And she said, oh, Mom, you could totally do this. You just need to have a biology degree and you could do this. So I applied. I ended up doing an interview over Skype from London with the teachers there at Oaks Christian, and they offered me the position. And it was actually like terrifying to go back into the classroom full time. And I was teaching anatomy and marine biology, 2 classes I'd never taught before. And I had a very packed schedule, but I just jumped in and did it because I felt like the Lord had given me this opportunity. I just needed to take it. And it was really great. I enjoyed it a lot. I got to be there at the school with our youngest 2 kids and saw them around the campus and got to know their friends. And more opportunities opened up for me like that at Oaks, to where at the end of my time of teaching there, I was really teaching the marine biology classes. That was kind of became my specialty, and I really enjoyed it.
So tell us about when you decided to leave teaching Oaks Christian and what precipitated that.
Well, it was kind of unexpected for me because I was really happy in what I was teaching. I felt like I'd found my niche. I had great colleagues. I loved the students, and it was a great balance for me. But we still had two of our children were here at Pepperdine. And I was also spending a lot of time with Pepperdine students. And we were continuing to host the Bible study in our home for law students. And I think part of it was with the Woolsey fire, the experience we had being with the students during that time. And I just started feeling like the Lord was tugging on my heart, saying, you need to spend more time with Pepperdine students. And I was able to kind of let go of this idea of staying at Oaks Christian indefinitely. And so I prayed about it, and we discussed it, and we talked, to the family and everything about this. And I just said, I can't really explain it, but this is what I'm feeling that I'm being called to do. So after all of that, I went in, and just after our Christmas break at the high school, I told my principal, I'm going to retire from Oaks Christian. And she said, okay, like, why? Is anything going on? And I said, I don't know why, but the Lord has called me out of teaching at Oaks Christian right now to spend more time at Pepperdine. And I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'll let you know when I find out. So I finished out teaching, the plan was for me to finish that semester at Oaks.
So then that obviously predated a different thing that happened in our lives. Tell me, to tell everybody, soon thereafter, I guess it was a couple months thereafter, is when the transition here began, when I was named as the next president of Pepperdine. Walk through what that was like for you and for the family as you contemplated whether this was something that you were looking toward or looking forward to or not.
Well, I knew through the process which was a very long process of your interviews to see if you would be selected as president, I felt really good about that because I love Pepperdine so dearly and love being with the students. And so I knew that if you were called into the position to be the president, that I would be right with you, it would be just a huge honor to be the first lady of Pepperdine. And I just thought back to my first time I stood on the campus and saw this place and thought, I can't afford to go here. It's not going to be a possibility. And then thinking to when I graduated from Pepperdine and was so grateful for that. But even at that moment, I could not have imagined having the opportunity to become the first lady of Pepperdine. I would have laughed. I would have said, you're kidding me. That's not going to happen. But I think that's just how God works. And so he had prepared me all along to step into this role. So I was very excited for you to have that. And also for me to be able to come into this role and to feel like I could start to repay a little bit back to Pepperdine, all that I had received from Pepperdine and from the community. So it was, I love this picture of our family. This picture was taken just before, it was the summer as you were starting the presidency. So this is how our kids were at that time.
And it's basically what they look like now. I still had more hair then. This 18 months has not been good to my follicle growth. So talk to us about, like, what is it that as a first lady you're kind of investing in? Where are you spending your time?
Well, it's really great because I feel like I'm able to continue spending time with students and spending time with parents. And so I sort of have this unique position as a Pepperdine mom still myself. Our youngest daughter is a junior at Pepperdine. We have two that have already graduated, but as a mom, I've been able to join other parents and spend time in prayer with them. And we did that in person, and then we've been doing that through Zoom through the pandemic. But also just in that first 100 days of your presidency, we were able to host over 1,000 students in our home. And that is a huge blessing for me. I felt like we were able to reach many, many more students than we ever had in any of the other things we've been doing. And so I really haven't tried to invest in our student body just to be a support I had said in the introduction of us to the community that health and wellness of our students was really important. And so I've tried to look for ways that I could help in that. And so through the pandemic, one of the things that I was able to do in the fall was to meet with a small group of first year students in what we called a RISE pod. And so I met with them a couple of times during the semester. And I was really grateful to have that opportunity to make connections with students, even though we couldn't be in person.
So tell us a little bit more about RISE.
So RISE stands for Resilience Informed Skills Education. And so a couple of years ago, as this program started, as Connie Horton and her team started this resilience program, I said, what can I do to help? I just want to be a support to you. And so we kind of launched that program, and I spoke at the introduction of this program just about my own story of resilience. And so we're really trying to help students learn some skills, some resilient skills. We all need these skills. It's a great reminder to me as well. But these are skills in the areas of physical health and mental health and spiritual health, community health. And it's just focused on how can we help our students be the best they can be, to be able to handle tough situations when they come up. And how do we do that in a very intentional way so that our students aren't just sort of left struggling, but can we prepare them in advance for when challenges come? Because we all know challenges will come in our lives. And so I think that's been a really successful program so far, and I know they're continuing to develop that.
Excellent. So tell us about one of the challenges that came in your world with this pandemic. Tell us what's life been like for the First Lady during the pandemic?
Well, it was very lonely at first. Just watching all of our students leave campus was absolutely heartbreaking. I couldn't believe it, and to be completely stuck here in Malibu and not be able to travel like we'd been doing. We'd been visiting many cities across the United States. We'd been meeting with alumni, getting to know people, and it was so much fun. And then all of that stopped. And so I was kind of sitting here wondering what my purpose would be. I took up different hobbies. I started making masks, which I think probably many people have done. Started making masks for, family and friends. Looked out the window a lot. The day they closed our beaches and said we couldn't go to the beach anymore, that was another just gut-wrenching day for me. So I would just look out from our place on campus and look at the ocean and just dream about when we could walk on the beach again. So that was definitely challenging. But a huge blessing out of that was getting all three of our kids back at home. Completely unexpected that we would have all three kids back in our home, because they had already sort of started to scatter a bit. And so for me personally, just having that time with our children was a huge blessing.
It was a huge gift to have them with us. And then they returned the favor by giving us a gift. What did they give us?
Well, unfortunately, they got COVID all about the same time. And then we got COVID a few days after. So that was over our Christmas break this last year. And
you can go ahead and say it. They gave it to us.
Okay, they gave it to us. I don't want to make them feel bad about it. But yes, they gave us COVID. So it was one of those things, it was so highly contagious no matter what we did. As you recall, we started wearing masks in our house with our family before they'd even tested positive. When we thought there was a possibility that they might have it, we were already wearing the masks, which I think could have helped a little bit on reducing the viral load that we received. But it was just one of those challenges that we faced as a family. I really am grateful that we were able to do this as a family and take care of each other. That turned out to be a hidden blessing of COVID, is just that we could help each other out.
Excellent. Well, what do you, last question, then I'll turn it over to Lauren for about 10 minutes of questions from the audience. What are you looking forward to as things start to emerge and reopen again? What gives you hope?
I am so looking forward to driving down to Lower Campus and not being able to find a parking place. That's what I want. I want this campus to be full of students. I want it to be so full of students and faculty and staff that we are, again, trying to find places to park. I think that is something we've really missed, is just being together as a community. I can't wait till the time we can worship together, we can share meals again together, we can sit and just talk about life. I can't wait for the Starbucks on campus to reopen so I can meet up again with students and sit out there and drink some iced tea and just check in with them and see how they're doing. And so that's really going to be fun. I'm also looking forward to traveling again more, visiting our alumni again, getting out there on the road, doing some of that. And then some of the things that I personally have enjoyed doing that has been a little different now. My women's Bible study, which meets in Malibu, there's several women in the community that join that Bible study weekly. And we've been doing it over Zoom, which has been really good for us, I think, but I can't wait to be back in person. So there's a lot of things that I've just missed, and getting to be with people is one of those things.
Amen. We weren't made to do life in isolation. We're made to do it in community. So let me invite Lauren Cosentino now, our Vice President for Advancement and Alumni, to facilitate some questions from the audience. Lauren?
Thank you both so much. We're getting in lots of comments from faculty, staff, and students who are saying how much they're enjoying this and appreciate you both opening up your lives to this community and sharing. One of the first questions that came through, Joline, what has surprised you most about being First Lady at Pepperdine?
Well, it's kind of, it's interesting. It kind of surprised me not only how busy I would be, but how much I enjoyed that. People have said to me, isn't it draining for you to be on so much and to interact with so many people? And I said, you know what? It has really brought me a lot of joy. And so that's kind of surprised me. The job has not been so exhausting. It's really been energizing. So, and getting to spend a lot of time with Jim doing this together has been really kind of an unexpected bonus in all of this.
Well, the devotion you two have for one another comes across in a very transparent and sincere and beautiful way. And I know many of us feel blessed to get to watch you all and how you serve Pepperdine as a family. So thank you. Okay, another question. Joline, what was one of your favorite memories from your time in Uganda?
Well, there's a lot of good times. I think some of the sweetest moments we had was when we were invited into someone's home and they prepared a meal for us. And just knowing that they'd given their very best to us. And you knew if they had like bottles of soda to offer you, that was a big treat. That was a really special thing. And they were kind of trying to they would have given you the shirt off their back, really, if you had asked. And one time we were working in one of the prison projects, and I was talking to one of the attorneys there, and I just commented, oh, that's a lovely scarf you're wearing. And she just took it right off and handed it to me. And the people in Uganda are absolutely loving, generous people. And so getting to know them like that, just experiencing their hospitality has probably my favorite memories.
Thank you. Okay, another question. Currently, Joline, what are you reading or what are you learning more about?
Oh, well, there's been a lot of fun things we've done as a family. We've been doing a family book club. And so we've been reading a lot of different things, wide range of things. So what I'm currently reading for our book club is called Apocalypse Never. You can look that title up. It's by an environmentalist. That's one thing. And then with my women's Bible study, I've been reading the book of John really in depth. And so that has been really wonderful to dive deeply into the book of John, even though I'd read it many times, but just getting to study that gospel again with a group of women has been really enlightening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, here's another one that has several parts to it. In your mind, what makes a good wife, mother, and teacher? What advice might you give to others or share to others about being a good wife, mother, and teacher?
I think in all those areas, number one is communication, being a really good listener, being slow to speak, and being patient in those circumstances. I think, it's important just to communicate not only expectations in each of those areas, but to communicate your love for that person. And whether it's communicating love for a spouse or a child or a student, it's important to figure out what their love language actually is. And so knowing does this person need words of affirmation, or do they need just some quality time with you? Or what is it exactly? Do they need some sort of acts of service that you can help them with? And so for me, I think that's been really helpful, just learning to be a good communicator and learning how people receive love.
That is really good. Thank you. Okay, another question. 100 years from now, when you and Jim are ready to retire, looking back at your tenure as First Lady, what might you like to see have happened?
That's such a hard question. There's a lot of things I'd love to see, but I think if I could see our community really unified, truly loving each other, and kind of like I was saying, just learning how to express love to each other, learning how people receive and give love, and finding some balance in that. But I think a unified Pepperdine community would bring me great joy and satisfaction. And I don't know what part I'm going to be playing in that, but just whatever I can do to help, that would be an amazing kind of legacy to leave.
Okay, another one. Thank you. What has been your favorite memory thus far as being First Lady?
Oh, wow. That's a tricky one. Okay, my favorite. I think just the times that I get to see students, if I'm walking across the campus and students, just call out my name, and they don't call me First Lady, which is good because that feels really formal. But if they just, hey, Joline, how's it going? Or they want to come and share something with me. I've had students just run up and want to share something good that's happened in their life, or maybe they might need to share something they need prayer for. Just that little connection with students has really been meaningful to me. And that's something I've really missed. We just aren't getting any of that really right now. And so I'm looking forward to that time again when I can just walk across the campus and see students and encourage them, and they can be encouraging to me.
Thank you.
We got time for a couple more questions, Lauren.
Okay, perfect. I've got two more. Someone has reflected on all the places you've lived and all the places you've been, and they're from London to Africa to Texas and Northern California. They're asking, what was your favorite place to live and why?
I hate to answer it too quickly because, I could change my mind later on. But as you mentioned, all those cities, London was a really fun city to live in. And the reason I really loved London was there were so many different opportunities there for us as far as museums and going to see musicals, the food, the variety of food, the culture, the diverse population that's in London. It was really just a lovely place to live. And it was so different from any place I'd lived before. It was really city living like I had not experienced before, getting to ride on public transportation. And so I think it was a very exciting city to live in, and I'm thankful we had those opportunities to go there for Pepperdine.
I know those students were blessed to have you and Jim there with them during those times, those important memories. Okay, last question, and this is slightly different than a previous question. Someone is asking, what has been your most meaningful moment as First Lady thus far?
Most meaningful moment. That's a tough question, I think. I feel like the most meaningful thing is yet to come, because it's probably going to be when our students come back on campus. But I think another really meaningful moment, and I can't wrap my head around this yet, but when I get to attend the graduation ceremony of one of our children, sitting there as First Lady, but also being a proud Pepperdine parent, I think is going to be a very meaningful time for me. And so I'm looking forward to that.
Well, thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Joline. And yes, I am fully aware that I am a hypergamist. I'm married up. That's the official word for it. hypergamist. Look it up. You'll see my picture next to it. Well, thank you for being with us. And stay tuned for next month. It's going to be on April 23rd. We're going to have Lindsay Snyder Ellingson. So Lindsay is the owner and president of In-N-Out. And so we're going to have the conversation will be the ins and outs of faith, hope, and leadership. So join us for a conversation with Lindsay and BYO In-N-Out Burger to that conversation. God bless you all. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you soon.